What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrubby here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. And I'm sure we all are aware of the fact that Karens would be very, very annoying to have to deal with. And whenever people have a horrible Karen experience, there's a subreddit where they share their stories called Tales from Retail. So today we're just going to be going over this subreddit, reacting to some of the best stories posted, and hopefully learning a little bit more about how to deal with Karens, alright? My personal advice, pepper spray. That's a joke, YouTube reviewer. It was a joke. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Don't pick up the crab. I haven't worked in retail for a really long time, and this story recons back to my first job in retail. First, a little background. I worked in a very small, family-owned store that sold live seafood, mostly lobster. The store was in the Northwest US, so sometimes we had local seafood too. One time, we had just gotten in a fresh shipment of Dungeness crab. Dungeness crab is delicious, but does not last very long, so buying the crab alive is the best way to preserve freshness. The store had an enormous saltwater tank to keep the crab in, but to take them home, we would wrap them in newspapers. Did I mention this was a long time ago? Crabs are pretty easy to handle if you know how, but if you're careless, they have claws that can feel like a big pair of vice grips. Crabs are helpless if you lay them on their back to wrap them up, so you simply lay them on their back next to the corner of the piece of the newspaper, wrap the corner over the crab, and the crab will fold its legs because its vital organs are at the bottom, and once its legs are folded, you can just wrap the newspaper over it from both sides and roll up the paper. To cook it, you just grab the outermost corner of the newspaper and hold it over the pot of water, and the crab just unrolls and ends up in the pot. One day, this dad comes into the store with two sons who were both preteen, and the dad wanted to order some crabs. Occasionally, people who bought crab made an issue of whether the crabs had all of their legs. It's not uncommon to find a crab who is missing a leg or two, since they were sold by the pound. Most people didn't really care that much, but this guy wanted to inspect the crabs I was giving him, so he came behind the counter where I laid them down on their backs on the table so I could weigh them, and he wanted to impress the boys that were with him because he picked one up to show the boys. And I don't know what his experience with crabs was, plus I was just a kid myself, so I let him handle it. The crab was almost able to get its pincher claw on the guy's hand, and he must have known how strong those little suckers are because he quickly put it down. Unfortunately, the genius put the crab down on its legs, and crabs spend most of their time out on the water, so they can run pretty fast to keep away from gulls and other birds who love to eat them. So once this crab is on its legs, it takes off running. It fell off the counter, lands on the floor, and still on its legs begins running towards the darkest place it could see, which was under the big cooking pot we used for cooking the crabs. If it got under there, it would be very difficult to get it back, so I literally jumped on it and grabbed it, and I end up getting my hand under the crab, but I had it too far under the crab, and the crab was able to reach my fingers with its claws. As soon as it got a grip on my finger, it felt like someone was gripping my finger with vice grips, and it hurt worse than anything I'd previously experienced in my brief 17 years of life. I also knew that crabs have two of these pinchers, and the crab was going to try to grab me with the other one, so I had to act fast. I was able to flop the crab back onto the table on its back, and when I looked at my finger, I started to feel dizzy, and I knew I was about to pass out from the trauma. I know it was just my finger, but the pain was intense. I somehow managed to keep the crab from grabbing me with its other claw and also grab a knife out of the knife rack. I stabbed the crab right in the middle where I had learned its heart was, and as soon as it was stabbed, the pressure on my finger subsided and I was able to get loose from the crab before I passed out. I wasn't actually conscious for the next part, but evidently the dad backed away and one of my coworkers wrapped up his crabs and he quickly exited the shop, and when I came to, I was laying down on the floor of the office with my hand in a pan of cold water. Somehow, the owner of the store didn't think to include a first aid kit as part of the essentials of running the business, and fortunately, one of the female coworkers had bandages in her purse, so I was able to at least stem the bleeding. The swelling was pretty bad and my fingertip was shredded. The bozo left with 2 live crabs and 1 dead one, and I only hope he tried to pick up one of the live ones himself. Sorry that the idiot wasn't the one who suffered in the story, but I only worked in retail for a few years and the experience was enough to convince me to pick a non-retail focused career. Wait, so he put the crab down, it comes over, starts mangling your finger like a shark attack victim, right? And while that's going on, you're dealing with the crab having to find a knife and stab it before it gets you with the other claw. He's just in the background wrapping up the crabs with the coworker. I need to go fast. Like, dude, he didn't even seem to really care that much. I mean, if my fingertip got mangled to the point where, like, it was messed up and I passed out from the pain, I would at least expect the person who caused my injury to, wait around to apologize. Nah, I've got crab to cook. It's your fault. Sir, you're the one who put the crab on its feet. Yeah, your fault for letting me behind the counter. People like this suck. Trust me, the person that works there knows a little bit more about it than you do. Even if you did it 30 years ago, chances are the processes have changed just a little bit, pal. Treat people better, ma'am, happened a few days ago. I'd been watching the self-checkout for the better part of the morning when my coworker Chris came over to send me home. I thanked him, got my crap, and had just clocked out when two older ladies came up to me.
Do you have any registers open?
No, sorry, ma'am, just me.
Why don't you have a register open?
Because I'm the only cashier at the moment.
How are we supposed to check out? I don't want to use the self-checkout.
Chris walked over to one of the self-checkout registers and picked up the scan gun. I can do it for you. I'll get you right there. The lady at that point made a half-scoffing, spitting noise.
I can do it myself.
Chris continues to stand there and look a little bit confused.
Where's the manager? We need to talk to the manager. This is terrible customer service.
I'm off to the side, stunned to see such a wackadoodle Karen, let alone two of them, losing their bloody minds at my coworker. Chris keeps standing there, still confused, while the two keep screeching at him. They scream for a few minutes about using self-checkouts, wanting to talk to a manager, and then again about a register being opened, and then finally, one of them decides they'll head to customer service to be rung up by a real person.
He's a little boop.
Chris was just standing there, speechless over what had happened, and at this point, I finally got over being stunned and realized I had an advantage. I didn't have a uniform on, and I was off the clock. I walked over to the two wild Karens who were craning their necks looking for someone at the customer service desk, completely ignoring the long line of people a few feet away. Excuse me, ma'am, that's my coworker you were yelling at.
What?
That young man you were yelling at. That's my coworker.
What's it matter?
Don't yell at them. He was covering for me so I could go home. At this point, both ladies focused their rage on me and started squabbling, demanding answers and explanations for registers being opened, and then both turned around and walked a few paces away, talking with each other, and came back to me.
What's it matter? You should hire more people.
My hands are shaking now as I raise my voice, because you need to treat people better. I was kind of expecting them to keep screaming or walk away. I didn't expect both of them to freeze and their expressions of anger melt away to be replaced with dumbfounded expressions. Lady 1's mouth was open as if she was trying to put something together, but Lady 2 just gave me the blankest stare I've ever seen. I fixed them with the dirtiest look I could, went to Chris for apologizing to not acting sooner, and then left. Apparently, I left one of them, put down the bottle of bug killer she was buying, and they both left without a word or speaking to a manager. And no calls have come in about the incident either. Not sure what to make of their reaction. I feel like they're just the type of people where no one had ever stood up to them before. Like, usually, I'm sure the reason they jump to that behavior so quick is when they start screaming and making a fuss, everyone just does what they want them to do. They were just flabbergasted it didn't work.
We need a register now! Now! Give me a register now!
And then, nobody did anything. You called them out and didn't open a register. They were just flabbergasted. I don't think they probably could comprehend that the world does indeed work that way. Nope, everyone is not obsessed with you and hell-bent on making your life perfect. Sometimes things are inconvenient. Not to mention, am I the only person who likes self-checkout? I feel like so many people hate on self-checkout, but it is just a better way of checking out at the store. I don't want to have to interact with the cashier. I really don't. Customers and random guy almost get into fist fight. This happened a couple days ago and I thought I'd share it here. For those of you that haven't seen my previous posts, I work as a boom truck delivery driver for a build supply company. For those not familiar, it's a large flatbed truck with a crane to unload material. This customer had a bunch of heavy decking material for a family member, so it was being delivered on my truck. When I arrived, the house was one of those where 4 other houses are directly connected to each other, so the only way to the backyard was through the house. The customer thought I could put the material over the roof into the backyard, but my boom doesn't have that kind of reach, so the only way was to take the material one at a time and go through the house. The customer pointed out that their backyard had a fence behind it, and it was a cul-de-sac, and behind the fence was a little pickleball court. He told me I could enter the cul-de-sac, park on the court, and then reach the boom into the backyard. I verified with him that there'd be no problems and that the court and everything wasn't private property, and he assured me it would be fine, and if anything goes wrong, he will bear responsibility. So I enter the cul-de-sac, inspect the court to make sure it could handle the weight of my truck, and then pull forward and unload the order into the backyard. During that time, people in the cul-de-sac came out of their house watching the show as I boomed the order into the backyard, and one guy came up to me talking about how amazing it was to be able to deliver something like that while not having to do it by hand. Everything goes without a hitch, and I told my boom to back up to its driving position as the customer writes me a check. There was a little discrepancy with the total amount, so I phoned down to the store to find out the correct total. As I'm talking to a store worker, this guy drives up with a big pickup truck and yells at me, "What are you doing?" I respond that I'm making a delivery to the house behind the fence, and he yells that you can't park your truck on that, it's a brand new court and you're gonna wreck it, it's private property. I replied I was following the instructions of the customer and they were the ones who told me to park here. Well, you're still gonna pay for that if there's any damage. At this point, the customer is poking his head over the fence, telling the guy to calm down and they would be the ones to fix any damage, but the guy keeps yelling about how he doesn't care, I shouldn't be there, blah blah blah. And the next little bit was a blur because I was both on the phone and everything went from 0 to 100, but I remember the customer yelling, "Talk to me like that and I'm gonna hop over there and kick your butt." The two just throwing obscenities at each other, threatening to beat each other up, while the customer's family was yelling at him to stop. And that random guy I mentioned from earlier who was talking to me about how amazing the truck was, he was standing in front of this irate guy, holding his arm out in front of the irate man, trying to keep it from turning into a fight. Finally, the guy gets in his truck and drives off, and the guy who's standing in the irate man's way comes over as him and the customer talk, trying to get the customer to calm down. He was saying, "No, pay no attention to that idiot. He lives several houses down. He shouldn't have gotten involved. He's one of those people who are more brawn than brains." He then identified himself as head of the cul-de-sac community, and he had no problem with what we were doing, and the court was fine, and it was an interesting show, and he pointed out that if the customer ever needed anything else to be boomed in again, to come to him because he can give official permission. The customer thanked him, apologizing for how it escalated and for not knowing he was the one to go to for permission. Both him and the customer apologized, and I just laughed and said it keeps the day interesting, and we all wished each other a good day. And when I'm leaving the cul-de-sac, I pass where the irate man lives, and he's standing on his porch and gives me a very low effort, almost defeated wave, and I smile at him and give him a very energetic wave as I drove by. Wait, it wasn't even his court? Like, he's not even in charge of the subdevelopment, and he just came up and hopped out and started screaming that, like, you were gonna fix the damages even though it's not his? What a random thing, bro. That's like imagine driving by a park and you see like someone doing something they're not supposed to be doing in the park. You're really the type of person to pull over and tell them to stop? Like, imagine it's a football field, you see a kid kicking a soccer ball, slam on the brakes as hard as possible. That's a football field! That's a football field, no soccer! No! I mean, the customer probably shouldn't have escalated it either, but I have no clue why that guy just decided to get so angry over something that had literally nothing to do with him. Who's confused? You're confused? I'm confused. What? Every once in a while, I come across someone whose thought process is different, and it's hard to figure out what's going on between what they're thinking and what's being said. This customer I talked to recently reminded me of the phrase, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The conversation, we had to backpedal a mile and turn down a different route in order to get back to things you want to accomplish. That, or the very least, having to take baby steps through this, having to explain things that most normal people would be able to piece together themselves. In this situation, I was taking phone calls and helping people go over the bills that they have with us and other questions. The customer initially called in to inquire about why she's not receiving her bills. Simple enough request at the start, and the conversation went like this. How can I help you today?
Yes, I've called because I've been frustrated over these last couple of months. I've tried to check online to see what I owe, and I was wondering why I haven't been receiving my bills.
I check on her account and see that we've been sending them to her, and additionally, she's been signed up for getting them sent to her email, so I've seen this call 100 times. People forget they signed themselves up for e-billing and call to complain, blah blah blah. I'd be glad to check up on that. And to inquire, you mean why haven't you been receiving them in your mail?
Yes, of course. What else would I mean?
As it stands now, your account is signed up for paperless billing, meaning it's been opted to have bills emailed to you.
I know what that means. I remember signing up for it. Why do you bring it up? already over this conversation, but I know it's very far from over. Well, the reason why is because when it's set up this way, it means you're no longer sent bills through the mail, it's sent to you strictly through your email. That's just outrageous. Why can't you send it to me both ways? Unfortunately, it's an either-or situation in regards to this matter. Now, if you wish, well, I don't want to have it that way then. Okay, that's good. That's actually what I was about to suggest. I'll go ahead and take care of that for you. All right, good. You best do that. I just want them to come to my house. Now, on to my other issue I called you for. I sent in my payment to you recently. I want to make sure you got it. Certainly. Glad that's over. I look into her account in regards to payments, and it says on the account that there's nothing past due. However, there's still a bill that's currently owed of blah blah blah. If the payment you're talking about that you sent to us meant to cover that, because as of now, we haven't received enough to cover the bill. Wait, what? There's still something that I owe? Why? How is that? Well, the deadline for this bill isn't for another couple weeks. However, it's for the bill for this month. The payment you're talking about was meant to cover this, right? If so, we haven't received it for this bill yet. When did you recall making the payment? I'm trying to see if she made the payment and we haven't received it yet, or something went wrong in the process. I just made the payment. What are you saying? I still owe something? The last payment was received April 20th, and that covered April's bill. However, since then, a new bill came out, and that's what's owed. Is there a payment that you've made since then? Of course I'd be talking about the payment I sent in April. I only pay my bills at the end of the month. Why would I ever be talking about a bill for May? It's not due yet. She's getting increasingly angry the entire time, wishing I could just hang up at this point. I'm sorry for the confusion. With you wondering why you still owed anything, plus you saying you've been checking your account online, it made me think that you were talking about this bill. Now, why would you assume I meant this bill? I was talking about last month's bill, obviously. I decided not to repeat the explanation and just told her and moved on to avoid any more arguments. My apologies, and in that case, we did not receive the payment to cover last month. Is there anything else I can help you with? I just don't know why you'd think that. Anyways, I guess that's all for now. And she promptly hung up on me, and I sat there for a few seconds to calm down my frustrations before moving on. I don't know why people are just so complicated. I don't know, man. It will never cease to amaze you if you work in customer service just how stupid people can actually be. Yeah, I remember signing up for the email bill, but like, why am I not getting it mailed to my house? I don't know. Say that again really slowly and see if you can figure out where the problem lies. With people like that, dude, it's even worse, because I feel like most of the time, people that are too dumb for their own good are at least nice, like they're too dumb to realize they can be mean. But when someone's just smart enough to be a jerk, but too dumb to realize they're not actually that smart, that's when it's a scary combination. Nothing is more horrifying than a confident person who just thinks they are right. Even if they're not, they're still gonna send it. It's a Wrangler. During my time selling cars, I sold a lot of Jeep Wrangler. For those of you who don't know, the Wrangler is a purpose-built car to go off-roading and really isn't that great of an everyday SUV. My customers who bought Wranglers and knew what they were getting were happy. My customers who didn't know what they were getting and bought a Wrangler hated it. I had a guy come in with a BMW X5 to trade it in on a Wrangler, and I took him on a test drive. I explained the cons of the Wrangler. It's a rough ride, gets horrible gas mileage, doesn't hold in heat or cool air. It's bumpy, and even though it's big, it's for what it's designed, it can make for a cramped driving experience and has a lot of quirks, and that's how it's built and it's meant to be that way. This was a Sport S 4-door automatic hardtop with features like heated seats, and we sold it to him for about 45 grand. I remember him asking me questions like, are the seats powered? No. Are the seats cooled? No. I remember him asking me about features it didn't have a lot. I even remember asking him, are you really sure you want to trade in your X5 for this Wrangler? And well, he did. Over the course of the next several weeks, he would complain that the wind noise is really loud. Well, it's a Wrangler. It doesn't keep in the heat well. It's a Wrangler. It has horrible gas mileage. It's a Wrangler. It's really bumpy. It's a Wrangler. I finally said, would you like your BMW back? And he said, you'll unwind the deal? I told him no, but you could trade your Wrangler into us and we'll buy your BMW back, and he said all right. He came in and we offered him $40,000 for his Wrangler and sold him back his BMW for $1,000 more than we paid him for it. When we gave him 40 grand for the Wrangler, he was surprised because he expected our number to be lower, and he asked, why are you giving me 40K? And I said, it's a Wrangler, and he smiled. So yeah, basically he spent $6,000 to what amounts to renting a Wrangler for 6 weeks. He just really wanted to give you $6,000, you know? My real question is, if it's that easy to make money selling cars, why did you stop, dude? People will just give you $6,000 and then sell you the car back to you, buy theirs back for $1,000 more. That's such a great deal. No, okay, you're gonna pay me a couple grand and you're gonna drive that for like a week, okay? Yeah, sure, I don't see why not, I'm down. A tale from the self-checkouts. My fiance works, or worked, I should say, as an assistant at the self-checkouts for a market downtown, and it was a busy Sunday and there were lines at the registers. It was two young women's turn at the front of the line to check out, and they had a full cart and began scanning their items slowly. They scanned a few things, changed their mind, asked my fiance to take an item off the order, then changed their minds again and put it back on, scanned a few more items and needed another item taken off, took a break to text, and this went on for 20 minutes. My fiance asked if they needed help, and they were fine, they said. Finally, after all the items were scanned, one went to use Apple Pay and found out her account was low on funds, so the other went to use her Apple Pay and also found out that her account was low. They stood there, frozen, and my fiance approached them again and asked if he could assist, and one of them told him that they were working on transferring funds to pay for the item. He asked them if they wanted him to suspend the order until they got the account straightened out, and they told him it would just be a minute and they'd have it figured out. The lines were getting longer and longer. 10 minutes later, one of them disappeared from the checkout area, and the other stood at the register texting someone. My fiance again approached the remaining woman, and she said her friend would be right back, and 10 minutes later, he looked up and they were both gone. Nowhere in the area. It appeared they just up and left. Unsurprisingly, it does happen, but they had left their cart and all their items in the register, so my guy gathers up their stuff, puts it back in the cart and wheels it out of the way, cancels the transaction, and lets another customer take their place to keep things moving. Over 10 minutes later, they both came back in the store and demanded to know where the cart went. He told them it was over by the liquor counter and he canceled the order because it was an hour since they walked up to the register to check out. One woman was furious and said she only went to her car to charge her phone for 20 minutes and he should have known she'd be back, and started yelling and throwing a tantrum. Then my fiance went off. He made it clear that they were being incredibly self-centered and had been holding up other customers for an hour, and they should have figured out their payment method and should have charged their phones ahead of time. He told them that if they knew they would hold people up, they should have suspended the order, got themselves together, and come back to complete it after they resolved the situation. And he then sent them to the back of the line to start over, and they did. Not joking, 3 people waiting clapped and 1 high-fived him, and that was the tipping point. He was done there, no going back, and had other work lined up anyways, and quit. Dude, people like this just should not be allowed to interact with general society. Like, who thinks that it's normal to take an hour to check out at the grocery store and just leave the cart, go do something, come back, charge your phone? Like, I cannot believe people like this actually exist. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you like these stories, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.